Well, thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to serve you what the newspapers are saying. And joining us for that discussion, Director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asante, is our guest. Doc, good morning. Welcome to Wednesday.
Good morning, Ben. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We've still not been able to connect to check out your fish farm. Doc.
Yes, you should have some time and then come over. You will be happy.
Yes. I guess I will, and I'll learn a thing or two, because in this economy, like I usually say, these are the ways that you can do something, for yourself,
exactly so.
and earn an extra income. Anyway, so today being a Wednesday, like we usually do, it's been about a week since we had an encounter. What do you make of some of the things that have happened so far? The budget statement has been approved. We've been told about a debt exchange, which is basically debt restructuring. And the many things that are going to happen, and how coupons, are going to be affected. Bondholders, local bondholders. There's also that plea in the pipeline for, creditors. Basically, we are the debtor, for them to be merciful upon us when it comes to our debt in certain ways. And there were quite a number of matters. There's also the bit about some parliamentarians going to Qatar. Now they've returned and they've got quite a bit of stick, a bit of flack from different people. Any quick reactions to this before we get into the daily graphic for starters?
Yeah, I think I will touch on something that is different from what you've said.
Okay.
And the issue of, reshuffle of ministers, which President Kufuor has also waded into that conversation. All right. If you look at the issue, people have called upon the president time and again that there's a need to change ministers, reshuffle them so that you can bring in energy and then move on. And all these things are falling on deaf ears. Now here we are. Time and again, you hear the president say that his ministers are performing very well and all that. Is that the performance we expect from ministers? In governance, reshuffle is a must because you want results. You want to leave a legacy. If you don't reshuffle from time to time, it's like a coach sitting at the fence and then looking on while the players are playing, and then there is an abysmal performance. You need to throw in some ideas, get some people in, and then speed up the process. We reshuffle on a number of grounds. One is when there is a change in policy direction. Right now, we are going to IMF. We are going to change direction in terms of our policies. You need people who understand the IMF business, so to speak, and then come in and bring in fresh ideas to help us. Two, you want to also change or reshuffle ministers simply because you are seeing some lack of performance on a part of certain ministers. It is true that some of the ministers have, done well, but it is also true that some of them have performed abysmal, and that you need to remove them and bring in fresh energies to come and help build the process. All these things, we are saying it, and then we want the president to take advantage of it. If the president is not listening, we expect the Council of Elders to stand up and tell the president.
You mean the Council of State?
No, the Council of Elders. Or the
Council of Elders of the party.
Yeah, of the party.
Okay.
That's why we have them. Because when the going gets tough, these are the people who can rise up to the occasion and advise the president that, Mr. President, look, what we are doing is not going to help anybody, so you better look at ABC and all that. If he fails to do that, all that we are going to have is that you are not going to leave any legacy for the party and for the person who we met as a flag bearer of the party. What is he going to stand on and campaign? I think that this is food for thought for the party. Free consultancy. They need to do that now. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult because there is a cost for this. If you fail to listen to the people and you fail to do the needful so that you can leave a legacy, I'm afraid governance is nothing but contest of ideas and referendum of the work. What work are they going to leave behind? That's my humble question to President Akufo-Addo, that he needs to listen to the people and his party people, because I am sure, have no doubt in my mind that he wants to leave a legacy.
It's interesting that you put it that way, because we've seen the political cost that you allude to actually come to bite some politicians in this country. And so it goes without saying that, yes, like you put it, what legs would any contender, any aspirant from the NPP stand on if things continue down this trajectory? But speaking of which, there's something that comes to mind. On the back of Otto Addo's resignation, and some people I've seen on social media, some people alluding to the fact that Dr. Kwabena Donko, back then when he was power minister, energy minister, and he proposed that he would, resign if he was not able to bring Dumsor to an end within a specific period. He resigned. Yet we see people who said that we wouldn't go the way of the IMF still at post. We see people who said we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't do that. People have pointed fingers at the vice president and the finance minister. Is that rhetoric still viable, especially as we need hands on deck as well to deal with the chaotic situation we find ourselves in? Where do you stand?
It's a difficult question, but you see, in other jurisdictions, what people do is that once you promise something and you fail, you don't need anybody to tell you. You resign peacefully. But here, that is the reverse. We don't have that situation. But you see, we can instill that into our society by punishing leaders who fail to do the needful. When they promise and fail us, then we vote against them. We have all this time, traded with our votes, and that we virtually have no power. If we want to manage our power very well, that is, I'm talking about our right to vote, we will remove any leader who crosses the line without mercy. And that is the spirit in which we build every solid democracy.
But it's the problem,
yes,
it's the problem, especially as you are, we all are students of politics. I know we all like to put it that way, though you have your PhD in this. But is that not exactly the problem? Because our system, our political system, unlike in the United Kingdom where they have a parliamentary system, and you see how quickly Kwesi Kwarteng was ousted. You see how quickly Liz Truss, resigned. We don't have such a system. It's a 4-year system, and good or bad, we have to stick with the person for a 4-year period. Are you advocating then that we bring to bear some sort of change when it comes to our constitution on those issues?
Oh no, we need to build a culture, political culture, the culture that you are ready to listen to government, share ideas, and you want your government to do the same by listening to you. If the government fails to do that, if you get opportunity to renew the mandate of the government, why do you want to maintain that government? You throw the government out. But that culture is missing in Ghana. That during election, people pander to the whims of politicians, and then just a little, hampers and all that, people fall in line. We need to take these things seriously so that when we are going for election, let us remember that it's a serious business, and that whoever fails to do what is required of them in terms of the promises and all that, we don't hesitate at all to throw that person. That is a culture. We want to maintain the system. I am a student of democracy, and I will support democracy through thick and thin. But I'm saying that we need to build certain culture in there so that at the end of the day, the citizen, the voter, will become the game changer. All right. Here we have the politicians have taken us for a ride simply because we sell our birthright to them. Let us be strong and then listen to them. If they fail to do the needful, anytime we get opportunity to renew their mandate, we fail them. And that's all. That is the way to go. Why are we paying taxes? Why are we paying revenue to the state? And that a few things that we deserve, we are denied of. And we sit down, and then during the next election, we only go there and say, this is my party, this is my tradition, we want to maintain democracy, we want to build a culture that says that if you fail your promise, I will punish you. So that every day, politicians will be steady, and that whatever if they want to promise, are not going to make what wild promise. And then, because they know that when it comes for accountability, will not hesitate to deny them any renewal of their mandate. That's all. Once that spirit is on, I tell you, every politician will look sharp. Let me put it that way.
Let's get into the papers now. The Daily Graphic, starting from there. Build consensus on debt program. That's according to the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. There's also President inaugurates and inspects projects. That story on page 16. And there is Ghana Compact launched. There's also Tech Gulf Opens Technical Support Call Center. And Wizkid storms Accra for big concert Saturday. Of course, Ayodeji Ibrahim Balogun, popularly known as showbiz circles as Wizkid, will be leaving an indelible mark in the minds of, on the minds of the more than 40,000 music lovers and enthusiasts who will throng the Accra Sports Stadium. Let's talk about the major issues. The Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research of the University of Ghana has called for national consultations among all stakeholders and the government for a consensus that can ensure a successful debt restructuring exercise and restore confidence in the economy. The Policy Research Institution maintained that a national consensus among key stakeholders such as Parliament, investors, civil society organizations, and the citizenry would help accelerate the country's recovery efforts and avoid the mistakes that led the economy into its current challenges. But reflecting on the budget and everything that has happened, Professor Peter Quartey of ISA said, the current woes had been due to a compendium of factors, including the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the financial sector cleanup, the energy sector debt, the Russia-Ukraine war, excessive spending during the 2020 elections, as well as borrowing to finance capital expenditure. However, he said the country seemed to have borrowed beyond its sustainable threshold with no buffer to absorb major shocks. Just to end, he also says, in addition, the high fiscal deficit and downgrade by the ratings agencies led to capital flight, while on the domestic front, the lack of confidence in the local currency is worsening the exchange rate depreciation and high inflation. Now, that is what Professor Peter Quartey, your own colleague at the University of Ghana, is saying. To what extent do you agree with him when he talks about the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war, among others?
I agree with him totally, but I'll add more. What the professor has said, he has said it all, but I'll add a few. What am I adding? What? The issue of indiscipline. We are here because of indiscipline. If we are disciplined, we will not borrow that much. No, we borrow with care. We are not disciplined. If you look at indiscipline, even under indiscipline, we'll talk about the issue of the size of government. Why is the government keeping this elephant size of government? And then at the cost of the ordinary Ghanaian taxpayer. Why? We are talking about what, austerity measures ahead of us, and yet government doesn't want to listen to some of these things. The position of government is annoying, to say the least, all right, on these things. Why? We are here because of indiscipline. Indiscipline in the sense that if you look at even the way we manage vehicle administration and fuel and all that, right? Look at the proposal from Finance Ministry. We'll do this, we'll do that, relative to, the way we manage fuel and then vehicle and all that. It tells you that we are indisciplined. There is also what? Failure of public policy. We throw in a lot of policy and we fail to what? Evaluate them. Every policy needs to be evaluated, assessed from time to time and see whether it's viable or not. If not, you change it, you improve it and all that. Over the years, we are just sleeping, and then look at where we are. If we were tracking inflation very well, and we were on top of our game, do you think we'll be here? If you look at all the statistics in Africa, you put even Francophone countries aside, Anglophone countries, we are leading in terms of what? Apart from Zimbabwe and a few countries, we are leading in terms of what? High inflationary rates. What has caused it? It is true that Russia and Ukraine, it is true that the issue of what COVID and all that, but what about our own making? It is a fact because all these countries experience the same COVID, experience Russian-Ukraine war effect and all that. Why is it that we have something different in terms of our figures of inflation? And it means that there is a local issue that really affected us and that the government should not run away from it. And then all these things we are saying is a lack of what? Openness. Governance is what? An open enterprise that because you are not running your own public business or private business, you need to open up. If you sign up to the concept of good governance, there is an aspect of it that's called openness, transparency. Let everybody have access to what you are doing so that we can contribute to that. And that the government has failed woefully. If you look at what? Stakeholder participation. Government will take a decision before later coming back to look at the public whose mandate you are in office for. All these things are part of what the wrongs that are associated with this type of what governance we have in this country, especially in this regime. I'm afraid the government, if you want to what everybody to be on board, they need to build consensus. It's the magic one that will turn things around.
Well, let's quickly take a brief look at some of our sister countries and what is happening there. DR Congo government rebels to meet in January, and the Community of East African States announced that armed groups and the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo would hold peace talks in January in Eastern DRC following 3 previous meetings in Kenya. This announcement was made at the end of the 3rd session of the Inter-Congolese Dialogue, which brought together for 8 days in Nairobi representatives of some 50 armed groups, the government and civil society. Obviously a positive there. And it's interesting because you look at the Congo and the mineral wealth they possess. You look at some of the rare minerals on our planet and they have them. You look at, and I mean, this place could have been the bread basket of the world, but I guess all kinds of turmoil have led them, whether you're looking at the DRC or the other Congo. But this one interests me as well. Maybe you can just reflect on both of them. Tanzania scraps independence celebration. And this wouldn't be the first time, though under a different leader. But Tanzania's president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has cancelled Independence Day celebrations scheduled for Friday and directed that the budget instead be used to build dormitories for children with special needs. The 61st Independence Day event was to cost $445,000, money that will be used to build 8 dormitories in primary schools around the country. Tanzania's Minister of State, George Simbachawene, last Monday said the money had been disbursed. He said that instead of having parades and other national celebrations, the East African country would commemorate Independence Day by having public dialogues on development. I'm going to say this, a lot of people are going to get offended, but if I had my way, would put Independence Day celebrations on ice for a while. Because for me, there's very little that if we're looking at our strides at independence and now, that we really have to celebrate. We should be pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and saying, you know what, how about we invest that money somewhere else? But instead, we're putting up national cathedrals. Your take?
I support that. Why am I saying that? We spend so much. Meanwhile, we generate very little. Why do we do this to ourselves? All right. Independence celebration. You know, I support Tanzania in their call. You spend so much while you need a lot of things. Why can't you use that money to fix those problems? And it's the same situation in Ghana. Not only independence, but a lot of holidays. We want to increase productivity, yet we want to enjoy a lot of holidays. Why? How can you have both? It is not true. All right. And look at the Great Lakes region. All right. They have all the resources, but due to what? Poor leadership, poor management, and all the rest to it, they have problems. Ghana, I think we can take a cue from what? Tanzania, and then we make sure that we manage resources very well. Prudence is a problem for us here. Leadership is another one. And then we need people who have vision, whose vision go beyond their ethnic group to have what? A national vision. We lack them. We lack them in this country. And I don't know when we are going to get those people to lead us. It is a problem. And then there is a hypocrisy on the part of political actors in this country. Look at programs that we don't need them. Cathedral, it is a beautiful program, but do you need that at this time? But you see a number of people from Christendom and from the country will support it through thick and thin. And that hypocrisy must cease. Now here we are. We don't even have money to take care of our people that we owe. And then even to commit to other things that we need to pay money every day. And now here you are. We are engaging in programs that require a lot of money that we don't need them now to save any soul. We don't need the cathedral to save any dying human being. I want to put it bluntly. But you see the hypocrisy on the part of this, some members of this community. They are saying that, let it be whoever speaks against it, and they think you are the devil incarnate and all that. We will continue to speak about it because it's a public policy. And let us understand that any public policy is what? Taxpayer driven. We pay, and it's not a private business. So we have the right to say it After all, we are the owners of every public policy. We'll continue to what? Agitate using the legal rules and right the wrongs so that our society will live up to expectation.
Well, I don't know whether anybody will learn. At least we still have our Independence Day coming up, 6th March. Hopefully, if there are ears to hear, maybe something will be done. But let's quickly look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Stop grain smuggling to Burkina Faso, Niger, and others, Agric Minister to Upper West Region residents. Parliament approves 2023 budget statement, but minority threatens to kick against some taxes. That story on page 4. Biomass fuels kill 20,000 Ghanaians prematurely annually. That's according to the Second Lady, Mrs. Samira Baumia. MPA to seek cabinet support to remove LPG taxes. And VEET cuts sought for work to begin on $26 million third-tier Tema motorway interchange. I want us to look at what the Agric Minister says, then what the minority in Parliament is saying, and then look at the scrapping or removal of LPG taxes. So let's do page 4 and then go to page 17 for the other two stories. For those two other stories. So Parliament has approved the principles and underpinning the budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending December 31, 2023. The House would, from this point, proceed to approve sectorial allocations before the passage of the appropriation, that is the amendment bill, to give the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, the power to withdraw funds from the Consolidated Fund and other public funds. However, the story was different yesterday as in terms of numbers, as a near full House conversion approached the budget statement with the Finance Minister in attendance. But what did the minority have to say? We in the NDC minority will fiercely resist and fight the imposition of this additional tax on Ghanaians. And we are talking about the 2.5% increment in value added tax, among others. And because, Mr. Speaker, it will only exacerbate the hardship they are already going through. That is the people of Ghana. In 1995, President Akufo-Addo led Ghanaians to oppose VAT. Has he any moral right to ask this august House to help him increase VAT by 2.5%? You have a difficulty in convincing us to support you. Our position on e-levy remains unchanged. We said that it was a disincentive to our quest to build a cashless economy. It goes on, but these are some of those that they talk about. Putting up a national cathedral around this time, including the aspects of our proposed debt exchange program. And they are saying they will support the budget, but not these new tax measures. Any reaction before we go to page 17?
Yes, I think I will begin with the smuggling of, grains to our neighbors.
I'm going to get to that story if you don't. I just wanted to. I'll do that on page 17.
I will start with Parliament.
Right.
If you look at the goings on in Parliament, sometimes you wonder whether our people really are representing us, because they say one thing at one point in time, and then another time they say something different. You ask yourself, you said you don't want to support the 2.5 additional tax burden on VAT, and then you're going ahead to approve the budget. Where do we stand on this? I believe that a public policy which is good, all right? We are in difficult times, but we also must look at the fact that we need to sometimes soften our grounds and then make sure that we get money to run the affairs of the state. It is true that times are hard, but you can also not ignore the fact that in fulfillment of what the extractive capacity of the state, requirement, that is, a state must generate revenue to run its affairs. When you are looking at what taxes and then some of these things, you need to be very careful. Otherwise, you run the country down. I am in support of any means by which we can generate revenue, but not the means that will really destroy our society and make life very unbearable for our people. So I think that the members of both sides in Parliament must reflect on these things and take a decision that will help all of us all. But what I can say is that, yes, it's one point, generating revenue. But the more important point is, how do you manage the revenue? That is the challenge I'm throwing to this government. Right. That from today, the money that we give to them, we will open our eyes and make sure that they use them prudently. Prudence is a problem. And I think that going forward, that is a line that the government has to work to.
Stop grain smuggling to Burkina Faso, Niger, and others. And that's the call by the Minister of Food and Agriculture, who is calling on residents around border towns to help check the smuggling of food commodities, particularly grains, from the Upper West region to neighboring Burkina Faso, Niger, and other countries. The minister, bemoaning the smuggling of farm produce from the region, said it was inimical to efforts by government at ensuring food security all year round. There's also the MPA, and the chief executive of the National Petroleum Authority, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, has said the authority's goal in the energy sector is to help eradicate energy poverty. In that regard, he said the MPA would engage cabinet to remove some taxes on liquefied petroleum gas to make it more accessible and affordable to Ghanaians, especially the poor. Quick reactions?
Yes, I'll start with the smuggling of grains to neighboring countries. This practice has continued time and again. And sometimes you ask yourself whether we have people who man our borders. Yes, we do have them, but are they doing their work? Of course, some are doing their work, but there are problems here. We need to fix this problem because now we are in a very difficult situation. And we also, as a society, must be patriotic enough to support the cause of our state. That look, we need to keep these things here and then get the society survive on them. Because of selfish interest, you want to cut them across the borders and go and sell and then develop your family at the expense of everybody. That's not fair. Patriotism is seen in some of these things, and that if we don't have that, then I'm afraid you can do everything. If people are not patriotic, we will destroy them. It is the duty of NCC and other groups to continue to educate people about the need to support their society, the need to die for their country a little, all right? It's not all the issue that you can blame it on government. There is also an attitudinal problem that we need to also fix. But that also comes to government, that they can use policy instruments to deal with some of these things so that we will find lasting solution to them. The other issue is about LPG gas. It is a good call. I support that because we want to conserve the forest and by extension also support the environment. That is a good one. Once we detract from this, we're going to create a problem where people will resort to the use of charcoal and other means that we don't support. So I believe that they need to reduce the taxes and then give a breather to people so that the government policy on we relying on this commodity for domestic programs will be on. Otherwise, you force people to go to the bush, which is not something that we want. Look at the resources we pump into maintaining the environment. I think we need to support the government in this call, but they must reduce the taxes so that it can be affordable, that every Tom, Dick, and Harry in this country, it doesn't matter your meager income, you can afford something to take care of your home program.
Well, on the back page, Bono, hero as Morocco knocks Spain out of World Cup. I don't know whether you've been following the football, but yesterday
I do.
The Moroccans just ousted. The Spaniards played everything in regular time and everything, but when it came to the penalty shootout, Bono caught 3 penalties, kind of like Croatia did to Japan as well, catching 3 penalties and beating them soundly, with Hakimi ending with a Panenka. That's one of the most cheeky ways of playing a penalty and qualifying. But that was it. And Portugal also thumped their opponents, Switzerland, by 6-1. That was quite a drubbing. Mouth-watering lineups in the quarterfinals. What's been your reflection so far on the World Cup, briefly?
Yeah, very interesting events. We have seen a lot of interesting scorelines and the drama and all that. Of course, pain. I am in pain that my country is out. All right. So the interest to continue to watch is winning. All right. But I want to, put out myself, revive my spirit, and then watch up to the end. But yesterday, we saw splendid performance on the part of Moroccans, especially the penalty shootouts. I watched it. It was amazing. But I'm not surprised, because if you listen to the background commentary, they said that they train in penalty shootouts for, I think, 1,000 times or something like that. And that tells you the preparation that they put in. Once you put in a very effective preparation, you are going to reap the results. And that was what transpired yesterday. We are in interesting times as they progress to the quarter, where we are going to see the giants, Brazil, France, England, and the rest of them. It's my hope and prayer that one day my country will also go into the semi-final, and then we show that we have what it takes to be in the global stage in terms of our football. There's something that I believe, I'm not a football specialist and all that, but my layman's view, I believe that we should begin to scout out for people who are playing in districts and regions and all that. They are great talent. Why we abandon them? Because I have read about how Eto was discovered through some of these programs, and look at what Eto did for football in Africa and for the rest of the world. I think when I was a little boy growing up, I saw soccer being organized at district level, regional level, and all that. I want to ask whether we have abandoned them. We need to go back to that and get the talent. There are raw talent there. I bet you when you put them together, there will be the Peles, there will be the Maradonas, and the rest of them. Yes.
Well, I'm going to do these three newspapers together, pick one story each from them. The Finder newspaper, we've touched on the other stories. Mpakadan Tema Rail project, 98% complete as President Akufo-Addo commissions 900-meter Afienya Road over bridge project. And that is the story there, the Finder. Then these two papers carry an interesting story. The Daily Guide says, NDC broke, Mahama begs for Momo. And Republic Press also captures that. It says, Mahama begs for cash for broke NDC. Just a quick look at the story in the Daily Guide, though. It says the 2020 presidential candidate of the NDC is now appealing to Ghanaians to come to their aid to fund the party's activities as they prepare for the 2024 general election. He has therefore appealed to willing NDC supporters to donate a minimum of 10 Ghana cedis to help fund the upcoming National Delegates Conference of the party. And some say because of that, the party is broke. But I do recall that even the current administration at a point engaged in a similar exercise back then. Maybe we should also structure how political parties can raise funds, though our constitution says something about that. We all know that a lot of what they get as funding, we don't regulate, we don't even know the sources. But then there's government under pressure. Republic Press, as NDC joins unions to reject bond exchange program, and mounting attacks from the Trade Union Congress, as well as some organized bodies over government's proposed domestic bond exchange programs are creating a headache for President Akufo-Addo. I only find it interesting that it says as NDC, joins unions to reject bond exchange program. So both of them basically are joining on that front. I'll wrap with the Daily Dispatch so you can just respond to them. Mandatory debt exchange program would be illegal, Godfrey Dame to Ken Oforiatta. I'm sure you've seen that, what the response of the AG was when the request was made in terms of a debt exchange. And it points to the fact that, no, this is not going to work. But it appears government, the finance ministry, is going ahead with it anyway. Quick reflections on these?
Yes, I'll start with NDC is broke. All right. You can understand this. In politics, you want to score political points. So any means that come your way, you grab it and then take advantage of it. All right. I'm not sure the NDC is broke. All parties, and as you rightly said, there was a time that NPP also introduced a scheme that people could donate money to the party and all that. These are things that are well in place within our constitution, that political parties have the right to generate resources to run the affairs of their own programs and all that. So if they do that, there's nothing wrong with that. It tells you, because in elections, you need at least three basic things, what I call RSM, resources, message, and manifesto, and of course, strategy. So this is one of them, resources. You need resources to galvanize support, to run your programs and all that. And that, I'm not sure that the NDC as a corporate body like that is broke. That one, that is a propaganda talk. We can understand that. And then we move on to another. The issue of debt exchange and the problems associated with it. I find it very worrying. if you listen to the groups, civil society groups such as Ghana Medical Association, such as some of the labor unions and all that, all right, one, the problem is what? Lack of transparency in the discussion of these things.
Right.
Government did not involve them about the issues, government position and all that. Government just sprang surprise on them and then told them that this is a situation, you either take it or leave it. That's unfair. That's annoying. And when people have given their money to you to manage on their behalf, if you don't have it, can't you talk to them? All right. In our traditional societies, when you owe, you go to the people on your knees, you talk to them and see how best they can help you to pay.
Right.
But you don't assume that posture that says that, well, I've taken your money, but take it or leave it and all that. That's not fair. All right. That, the response is, the effect is what we see in the response that are coming from the group that we are not going to allow and all that.
Right.
That takes us toward the realms of what good governance. If you are governing, having at the back of your mind the dictates of good governance, they said stakeholder participation.
Right.
And that is missing. This government professes to do all the things that under the sun which are required in governance. But when it comes to the real practical issues, they are found wanting. I believe that they must stop this and then engage. Once you engage, you win the sympathies of people. You are able to ameliorate the pain, and then people move along with you. That's it.
That's it indeed. It's been another great morning spending time with you, Doc. For those of you who don't know, my former lecturer anyway, I always look forward to Wednesdays. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kwame.
I am grateful. I also love this program.
Great. And so on that note, we cap off the news review. But let me just do this before we usher in the sports. It's from Baby Awo and Baby Ya. And they say, happy birthday to my warm and caring aunt, Ophelia Ejapong of Duffield Roofing Systems. So to you, Ophelia Ejapong of Duffield Roofing Systems, it's from your sweet Baby Awo and Baby Ya. Heaven. Okay, so Heaven Mommy, happy birthday. Love you. Heaven Mommy. That's an interesting name. Ophelia, happy birthday to you. Do enjoy the best of the day. Up next, sports. I'm sure if you missed the matches, you want to see how Morocco did it, stuck it out to Spain, and how Portugal just made Switzerland miserable. Mouth-watering lineups going into the quarterfinals. Stay for sports.